Our journey begins. Today is day 38, July 8th, 2024. And today, I really wanted to help try to explore the idea of proving that this whole thing isn't some scam, showing that it's worth the time and effort, and explaining the safeguards in place to prevent the worst from happening. And this is sort of in relation to the movie, like what the movie would say, and also in relation to like the actual part of the movement genesis of figuring out all of that. I think, so I'm just going to get into it here. A lot of the time, science fiction books, movies, political things, religions, complete ideologies, philosophical debates, etc., all are about how to prevent things from going horribly wrong, or often showing how things can go horribly wrong. And maybe not horribly, but at least not work out, or fail, or end up doing something completely opposite of what the initial intention was. Period. And I think that this is true for pretty much everything, like starting a business, etc. But I think particularly in relation to making the world a better place, sort of that sort of thing, often, or like trying to supposedly create utopia or something like that. It's just a field full of scams and full of failures, and a lot of times, and like when it comes to dystopias or utopias in books, oftentimes there's a reason why it didn't work out, or etc., etc. And so I guess the first thought is, yes, it's absolutely true that there are a lot of scam things probably in this whole area, and that when we start working on this area, more scam things will pop up. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. Even if I'm awkward and the way that I do it ends up making it fail or something, like, it's still better to try as long as you're making full intentions of doing it the best way possible and putting some safeguards in place to prevent the worst from happening. So let's talk through each of these points specifically and any subsequent points that come to mind. How to show people that it's not a scam, Colin. I guess sort of acknowledge to everyone that could be a part of it that there's no way of knowing for certain that this is not a scam. So there's some measure of having to believe me or trust your instincts or something like that. But in the way that it's possible to try to show that something is not a scam, those have all been covered. And if there's anything else that would help with that, please let us know. Period. So one of the key ideas is transparency. If basically everything can be kept transparent, that will be key. Period. Now, transparency in what regard? Transparency to everyone involved. Now, of course, like this right here is transparency. Obviously, I wouldn't have to be recording this. It helps a little bit with keeping at it, and it helps with people being able to go back and say, where did that idea come from? What was he actually thinking about when he came up with this idea or something? Or at least hopefully showcase that I'm not out here trying to do the wrong thing, or fake that I'm trying to do the right thing and actually doing the wrong thing. So that level of transparency is good. How else do you... I suppose you have like a track record? Now, in the beginning, there wouldn't be a track record. I guess there would be a little bit of a track record because like you could go back and look on YouTube of when things were published and that sort of thing. But even then, it's fairly recent. A lot of my writings I've been working on for years, but I haven't been recording those. But at least this helps with like a little bit of track record. Yeah, I think in general, just being completely open and honest and showing, or like, I suppose it's by default likely not a scam because what would be the benefit of bringing people together to work on something that would only possibly help the world? Like if it fails, the worst thing that happens basically, well, I suppose I don't want to rule out that you could create like a system of like control that would result from this, which is like going to be a subsequent point here of how to prevent things from going wrong. But in general, like the goal, like the main goal is going to be making a better world. So like, I don't know, as long as you're not like to me, that's why I never really wanted to have to ask people for money or something, because what's that going to do? And it just seems like I don't know. I just always thought that asking people for money is not the right way to do it. So if I can avoid asking for any money, then sort of by default, or having anyone invest money or anything, then sort of by default you avoid that entire scam aspect. So then another possible scam is that like I have ulterior motives. Which I suppose I could easily fake this, but I guess that is one potential reason why it's good to not be perfect at this, and why to stutter and why to do things slowly and all that. I think that probably does help validate that I'm awkward at it for a reason, because of course I could still be sort of acting out being awkward, but it would just seem like way too much of a backstory to be doing this every day for months and working things out and sort of the ideas. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it wouldn't make sense. If I was really out there to get power, you would create some sort of cult religion more so. So I think showing people that it's not a scam won't be too difficult because of those reasons. Period. New line. New line. Then you have the item of showing people that it's worth their effort. Period. A lot of people may totally agree that this is a great thing to do, but they might think that, yeah, but I'm not going to do it with you. Like, your idea is decent, but like your enthusiasm is the lowest it could be. Or, yeah, but I'm going to do it myself, or whatever. So you kind of have to show like why it's potentially worth their effort. And I suppose that would be a big part of the movie in general, but I could also imagine addressing that question specifically with some of the following: a fundamental aspect of the movement Genesis and the movement in general is becoming the best version of oneself. And it seems difficult to say that becoming the best version of oneself is the wrong thing to do. Therefore, if the only good result is that you were able to become a better version of oneself, that does not seem like a bad thing. Even if we fail at other areas, at least you will become a better version of yourself through the accountability aspects, through the sharing of knowledge, etc. Perhaps gaining friendships with people that actually care about the world. So that's one reason that by default it's probably worth it. Now you might say, but I can do that myself. And I know that it can be done by oneself as I'm doing things by myself. So then it's like, well, that's absolutely true. And in general, it's totally up to you if you want to join. But it probably will help to have friendships and be in a group of people working to become better versions of themselves. And beyond that, the whole point of the group of people is to try to do a good job of creating the movement Genesis. You could also say it's worth it because it's going to happen regardless. If you don't sign up to be part of the founders, that's totally fine. There's many good reasons why that could be, but it's likely that some other person will become a founder, and so it's totally up to you. And I think that would help present to people that it's an opportunity. And once it becomes an opportunity, that is sort of a unique opportunity that helps raise the value in people's minds, and by default that shows that it's worth their effort. I also think, this will be sort of woven throughout the whole movie in general, and people will be able to self-deduce why it will be worth their effort. Now, a primary component of all of this is how to ensure that things do not go awry, that we have safeguards against the worst thing happening. So let's do a mind map session of that. As part of the initial movement constitution, I should probably have all of these points in there of why it's worth the effort, why it's not a scam, and basic rules for how to ensure that it doesn't become something that no one wanted, and how to ensure that it becomes the thing that we wanted. And then during the Founders Genesis sort of initial meetings, there should be an important initial effort of thinking through how things could go wrong, and sort of highlighting and thinking through warning signs and what we would do when we have those warning signs, what other rules to have, what other adjustments to make so that things do not likely go wrong. I think that's going to be an important component, that everyone can bring up their concerns, and that all the concerns can be thought through adequately. Period. So some of my ideas for how we could ensure that things do not go wrong are by ensuring that our qualifications for becoming an initial founder are extremely high, and that efforts are taken to back up the story that the person is giving. So this will include a background check, and I feel like that's just basic safety. I don't know how difficult it is to ask for background checks, but I think that's just like a basic requirement. And then have like a set of rules of like, well, if their background check shows up that they did something or another, like there's a certain threshold of like what's possible. Because I think there are such a thing as second chances, but when you're playing with something this much, and you really want people that are seeking to have their best life, a lot of times that would have started as a child. And so you'd really want that all the way through. I do think at some point it will be very much a method of a second chance. But when you're starting things out, probably don't want that. Or even if you allow that, at least knowing about it and being able to put up safeguards. And as part of the transparency, I don't know if this is allowed, but yeah, you could probably say, if you want to be part of it, given your background history, you have to tell everyone. And if everyone votes that that's okay, then you can stay. If not, then unfortunately you cannot be involved at this point. And I hope you understand why that would be. Period. You would also want to have a set of simple rules that are like ones that people should keep, and it wouldn't have to be anything particularly controlling or anything like that. It would just be basic rules, like, and there'd probably be like a sort of system where like you get a certain amount of strikes or something. But it would be like you had to be honest. Yeah, you have to be honest with people. That's essential. And yeah, like you could say that all of this is covered under becoming the best version of yourself, but because that is going to be an individual endeavor, and when it comes to preventing really bad things from happening, you want to be specific. You want to really plan for potential bad things happening. So you want people to be honest. Another rule could be boy, I'm not exactly sure, actually. You're gonna have to study this more and like research science fiction books and sort of philosophies and religions. Like, would you want to just say like basic right and wrong, everyone has to follow that? Like that should be by default. But then you get into issues of like, well, what if people don't want to do that and all that stuff? But I think having some basic set of rules actually is good, because that would be another reason it would be worth it for some people to join, because it would hold them accountable to rules that might normally be difficult to follow, but that people will help them be held accountable to. Period. So like transparency and honesty are kind of in the same vein. And as long as that's there, as long as the ability to leave without there being major repercussions, as long as there's efforts to by everyone to ensure that everyone else is holding everyone else accountable to do the right thing in every situation. What other safeguards could you put in place? I suppose, so there are things sometimes where like a sort of bubble of a thing, of like a group of people or something, can sometimes self-reinforce their own beliefs, but then like if you said it to anyone in the outside world, they'd be like, what are you talking about? And so I think there has to be some sort of testing or transparency to the general public of this is what we're thinking at the moment, and then have people that will challenge those ideas. And I think that is a good way of also preventing really bad things from happening. Potentially you would run an AI that's some sort of like honest AI or like morality expert, or also a future predicting AI who can tell you if the ideas that you're talking about are going to likely end in bad things happening. And in general, another way of preventing bad things from happening is ensuring individuality and freedom and diversity, and coming up with I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, and in the decision-making process, it be something where it's democratic, it's under no one person's control. There are systems in place for ensuring that leadership has everyone's best interests and that sort of thing. I guess this has been a consistent problem that I've thought through, of like, I want to be selfless in the respect that maybe my only job is to get this kicked off, but then someone else becomes the leader and keeps it moving forward because they're way better at it or whatever. And like, I'd want the ability to be able to step out and say, yeah. But I don't want to create, like, I'm the only one that can ensure for myself that this doesn't turn into a bad thing. And so I feel like I need to always be able to have some control to say, this is the wrong direction. So perhaps there's a way to bake that into the system, to say, I can always pull the plug if I think things are going downhill. But I can't necessarily override decisions. So like, if the group, like they can have whatever leader they want, and no one has to make me happy. It's just that but then there would be the tendency for that to happen. Maybe if the group still wants things to happen, but then they know that I can pull the plug, then they will have to change things so that I'm still happy about how they're going. Perhaps, I don't know, I think most people would understand that. It's just a basic measure of security. But then I'm thinking about it, like what I want someone else, whether maybe people vote that for that person or something? Would I want someone else to have that power? To always be there and be able to say the wrong thing? I don't think so. And so then I'm like, well, why would I get that power then? And I suppose there is some compromise position here, or some alternate, which would be that I would have some veto power to say, no, that's not going to work. But that veto explanation has to meet all of the typical standards of logical explanation, etc. And so, yeah, I might give that power to someone else who can just say, or who can at least maybe even give that to everyone equally. Everyone has the power to veto anything if they think it's going in the wrong direction. But then there has to be some sort of like a hearing and a decision among the members of, does that logically make more sense? And is this what the Constitution is saying? Or should we change the Constitution? And that sort of thing. So, it is in general tricky because there are so many devastating things that happen in like science fiction movies. Like, yeah, what if some leader came along and took advantage of these people working together and said, okay, now that you're all together and all great, now I'm going to twist this into some thing which is really bad for everyone. So I think as long as the system is self-organizing and the principles of the system, like from the very, very beginning, are such that it's very difficult to let a bad thing happen, I think that will help a lot. Okay, so that was talking about those things. Now, I had this huge mind map yesterday about creating the movie. So, I think let me make sure if I should talk about that, or if I should, I think, yeah, there was that idea. Where idealism, there was an idea I was having yesterday in relation to a film I was watching, in that like, a lot of people wish that the world worked in this sort of idealistic way that I'm thinking of, where like you do the right thing and all of that, and you work things out logically, and then whichever solution is the most logical, etc., it's the solution that ends up going forward. But then there's the way our current system works. That sort of idealism doesn't end up working out because of government control and people not really wanting the best for humanity. Maybe I know what I should do. I should start writing up the qualifications for individuals. Say a background check. Background check is good. To a certain threshold. We have history of working to become the best version of themselves. So this includes exercising, eating well, overall health care, I'd say like learning, whether that be like reading, podcasts, etc. Making the right decision in certain circumstances. Their desires and intentions seem to be somewhat selfless. I don't know, some measure of work ethic. Finishing projects. Morality. I think it would be reasonable to say honest, basic, right and wrong, standing up for the weak. Not taking disadvantage of. I don't know, maybe half these qualifications are not necessarily kosher, but I don't know how else you would do it. Like, I know, like, obviously this is not a job, so there's not going to be, like, the qualifications can be, they should be equal for everyone, just by sake of, obviously. But they, like, has someone been exercising? Like, you're not going to have that as a job qualification at a job place. But I think that would clearly, if someone's not exercising at all, ever, then they probably don't care about their body, which means they probably don't care about other people. Like, self-care is sort of a basic showing of whether or not you care about yourself. I'd say you'd also need open-mindedness with critical thinking. And you would also want intelligence, which maybe this includes like, generally doing well in school, being able to think outside the box, having some technical training in some areas, enjoys or thinks about philosophical issues, is able to reason, people skills, kind to all people, generally get along with people, able to communicate, wants to become the best version of themselves. Wants to in the best way possible I might have to think about this more as well. Because obviously you can't be, well, I don't know. There's enough people in the world that you could be fairly strict, but then it's like finding them. And people like this are probably already doing their own thing. But that's fine. if everyone's doing their own thing, but they come together a little bit to help coordinate that, then that's perfectly fine too. So probably need to get more detailed with all that stuff. I probably would need background check references of some kind. Okay. All right, awesome. This has been great. We went over the potential qualifications that individuals would need to have, as well as thinking through primary objections, through how to ensure that it's not a scam, how to make sure it's worth people's time and effort, and what safeguards to have to prevent the worst from happening. It's a little bit of like a first draft type thing, because it's not like I could print this off and give this to someone and be like, here. But hopefully we can use that to create the script for the movie and move forward. All right. Thank you so much.